What's going on in Australia's regional property markets? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today, we welcome back Katrina, who's been really getting a bit of a reputation here for being looking at all these things property because it's really an area she's passionate about. So glad to have you back today to talk about regional property in particular. How are you going today, Katrina?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks today, Chris. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm good. Now, initially, people might say, look, why are you talking about property, right? Like, we're obviously here mostly gold and silver, bullion, crypto even, but where does property fit in? I think there's just such an interesting and important segue because people who come into the store and people that we speak to are often talking about this intersection because it's something that they're interested in. It's often where their wealth has been coming from, that they're converting into precious metals, or the other way around, they're saving up to buy property. So I think it's a really excellent intersection, and people do find that really important and important to understand. So I thought it'd be good today if we could talk about a few things. But firstly, how's it going in regional property? Because often you think, I can't afford the capital city, so maybe I should be looking out regionally because generally that's more affordable. It provides more options for people. How do you view that? What's going on there?
Yeah, well, there is a lot of intersection and crossover between gold and property with gold, especially regional property. At the moment, we're seeing obviously those capital cities decline. Um, in value, we see a lot of, I think we spoke about last time, Victorian investors. So we're seeing people pulling out, obviously in Victoria and in other states, and they're investing regionally, particularly I would say Queensland and WA. But yeah, the numbers are massive. And there's also, I'm just having a look here, there's been a decline again for this January month of nearly about 1%. Capital city value, so that's just a month in January alone. And we're seeing that capital cities are declining, whereas obviously any regional property is increasing in value. We're seeing interstate investors flock to regional property. It's more cost effective, greater lands for better value, and that's what people want, and that's what people are getting. Probably won't get it for too long, considering the price is increasing, but yeah, definitely a lot of people flocking to those regional areas to get property at a great price that they won't get in Melbourne, Sydney, or probably Brisbane City.
And we won't dwell on Victoria today because
Yeah.
it's certainly got a lot of comments. People definitely agreed with you on the last time you came on and were talking about what was going
Hmm.
on there. But you specifically mentioned there Queensland and Western Australia having
Yeah.
some of that really strong value growth. I know you've been
Mm.
looking at the numbers. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I've had a look at this for quite a while, and it's something that's interested me a lot with WA and Queensland, particularly in the regional areas. You're seeing places like Mackay about 5.7% growth. You see places in Townsville that are about 5%, Gladstone 4.3, and Geraldton in WA 6.3. That's just in the most recent quarter alone. So, obviously, Townsville is far north Queensland. Very big army presence in Townsville, but also economically, people are moving there for you've got mining, construction, other infrastructure jobs as well. So we're seeing people that are purchasing these properties obviously as investors, but also sort of the same coin. There's people that are moving there and they're buying their first property, and that's where the numbers are coming in. So these areas have definitely driven much of the regional growth, and they're most affordable, and they're really in high and strong demand. And I think at the moment, in particularly in some of those areas, you'll see more growth to come, even though those areas are sometimes in a flood zone or affected by weather events. They'll continue to grow in value somewhat for their obviously their demand, affordability, and just where they're situated in general. So.
So, is it across the board? Because you've mentioned a number of specific
Mm,
places there.
mm.
Is it across the board growth that you're seeing, or are some areas really doing much better than others?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, yes, across the board, regional is up, but there are particular markets within the markets like Townsville, probably South Cairns, um, and areas in WA, also Mandurah and things like that, that we're seeing that are probably outperforming um, the regional pocket as a whole by themselves, which is quite amazing. And like I said too, it's investors, but it's also people that are moving there, um, also as owner occupiers as well. They're leaving the capital cities, and especially with work from home. If people can work from home, they're doing so, and they're doing it in a more cost-effective way than they have ever before.
You mentioned rental there, and that this is an area that often causes people a bit of anxiety if they're thinking
Mm,
about potentially purchasing out in a regional area, because they go, well, yes, like it might be affordable, but am I going to be stuck in a property that ultimately I may want to not want to live there long term? I might want to live there short term because it might be my first home and that's affordable, and but it's not my longer term goal. But I don't necessarily want to sell it.
mm,
How does that work, or how do you think about that? Because has the rental market been keeping up? I know that
mm,
is something that you've looked at in the capital cities. I mean, it's just been for years now, um,
mm.
almost just a money printing machine if you could afford to buy something, because the rents have just kept going up and up. What does it look like in those regional centres?
Yeah, I mean, like I was having a look at some places in South Cairns. Um, you could get a three-bedroom, two-bathroom, and you're paying 650, 700, 750 a week in some areas. Whereas a couple of years ago you would be paying 380. So it's actually crazy to think about the differences, especially when we're thinking about Brisbane CBD, Sydney CBD, Melbourne CBD. You would be paying that for a inner city three-bedroom house a couple of years ago. You're seeing the same prices in regional areas. Um, so and it doesn't look like it's coming down anytime soon.
Right. So, I mean, overall, you've got a fairly bullish, I think it's fair to say, a fairly
Yeah.
bullish view on the regions.
Yeah.
We, what's the other side of that? Like, what are the risks?
Yeah.
Because people who are maybe have been thinking about it, have given it some consideration, but they're just not
Mm.
sure. Lay out some of those risks, because I think that is important, an important part of this conversation for people to have, to offset, or to at least be aware that it's not necessarily all rosy.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make, Chris. I mean, generally speaking, I think the regions are doing really well as a whole. And obviously, like I said, like Townsville and Geraldton and some areas are outperforming others. But the flip side of things, there's always going to be some areas that you do need to be aware of, or things in general in terms of investing in regional pockets. I know that there are some areas that are, I guess you could say, coming down in value. And we see that all the time in the property market. There's obviously peaks and then troughs when you come down. But there's some parts that you obviously need to worry about. Flood zones, particularly in regional, you've got high premiums for insurances, which some people don't, take into account when they are buying in those regional areas, but also bank valuations, things like that. So that's where you're seeing some of those regions in the lower, I guess, more affordable parts, maybe some areas that their bank valuations are coming back at a lower price point, whereas those places like Townsville, Mackay, the valuation might be a lot more than what you're paying for.
Right. So, if you were summing that up, would it be really, there's definitely opportunity there, but it's probably, like how you're describing some of those risks, it's probably not a short term thing. It's probably more of a, you have to commit to that property, whether you're wanting to hold it, but it sounds like the rental options are there, and they are being taken up. So is that how you view it? Because I can imagine that's probably the biggest counter to those risks, is just something apart from the obvious ones you mentioned, like flood risks and things. But the biggest counter to the investment risk would be if you can hold it for the longer term and there's potential there and you've got rental, it's probably safe.
Yeah, that would be the position where I definitely would be coming from. Just because we obviously don't know what's going to happen in the foreseeable future, and it looks like a lot of people are wanting to move into regional areas. So I think a long-term hold would be a position that I would definitely take, with especially rents increasing in those areas, and again working from home. Obviously, some people are going back to the office, but I think work from home is here to stay for a large majority of industries, and those types of people want to be comfortable and want to be able to live where they live, and if that's working from home in a nice regional area, I think they will do it.
Always interesting. It's certainly an area that I know, as I said at the start, people have been just discussing with us in the office. So it's great to get a little bit of diversity here in discussion and really cover all things markets and metals and how they intersect. So thank you for your work on that. Always appreciate it, Katrina.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.